Hi, my name is Cindy Holmes. I'm the director of the School of Intuition and Healing, and a very, very warm welcome to each and every one of you, old friends, new friends. This is our community, which means this talk is as much mine as it is yours. We're going to talk tonight about when you go through hardship and difficulties. When you face contractions and you're struggling, it's in that time that we find the medicine to heal. It is in those times, if you reflect back in your life, when did the most transformation happen and when did you grow the most? It would have been when you have really gone through a difficult time. Georgia, hi. I'm not sure why your audio isn't working. Everyone else's audio is working, yes? Yeah? Georgia, just come in and go, Georgia, I think it is. Just go out and come back in. Anyway, so there is a moment when we lose a loved one. There's a time when we lose our jobs, and there are big things that happen, and we go through a period of contraction and difficulty. But as we come out of the side, we have this rebirth into something that can be quite beautiful. For those of you who are in the mud and in that dark, difficult space, I'm not going to say the things that irritate me. I'm not going to say sit with it. It too will, it too will pass. And I've just said it to irritate you. But those are the things when people say it too will pass. But if you work on it and you find a structure, things will change. We also go through smaller experiences, which are also the medicine, and smaller growths. It's not always that we have to have these big traumas that help us grow. So I'm really excited tonight. I have two people that I've been on difficult and awesome journeys all in one, supporting, holding, reflecting, challenging. I think I've done all of those to both our speakers tonight, and they'll be laughing and smiling as I said that, because I've pushed their buttons, I've frustrated them, but I've also cried and held their hands with them. And I really would like to give them a warm welcome. They're going to share their journey so that I don't be telling my story all the time. There will be other people who are telling their stories. So we're going to have this lovely conversation. So first of all, I'd like to introduce Tamrin Feldman-Laporta. Tamrin is an energy healer, a holistic practitioner. She's a tutor at the School of Intuition and Healing with a background in Hatha Yoga, plant-based nutrition. Her healing journey was shaped by overcoming trauma and depression, leading her to embrace her calling as a healer. She runs a beautiful private healing practice in the UK, guiding others through deep transformation. I know it's not on the bio, but I know she's been doing a lot of retreat work and working in women groups as well. So I'd like to mention that. Taryn Nightingale, who had the privilege of mentoring when she did the healing course in person in Cape Town. Taryn is an accredited psychic, tarot reader, energy healer, as well as a tutor on our Foundation in Psychic Development course. She is an energy healer and a tutor at the International School of Intuition and Healing. With a natural connection to the unseen realms of childhood, her spiritual awakening deepened after a profound dark night of the soul, which she will share with us tonight. She now runs a thriving healing practice, creates content on spirituality and relationships, and also is a great psychic. Welcome, Tamrin and Taryn. I do get their names muddled up, but they're very close, but they both know who I'm talking to. I'd love us just to center and breathe into this evening so we can just let go of all the mental chatter that's going on and really open up to focus on our listening. Yeah? So I just invite you all, the breath. Just take a beautiful deep breath in and breathe out the chaos of your day. Breathe in and breathe out. And I just invite you to really, really relax yourself and just bring your attention into your body and feel your spirit sitting comfortably in your heart. Now I'd like you to send roots down from the soles of your feet deep into Mother Earth, all the way down to the heart of Mother Earth, and just allow this beautiful earth energy to come up through the soles of your feet and the base of your spine to help you embody this moment, to help hold you. And just feel her loving energy, our true mother that holds us and allows us to relax. And then we center in our heart and we attune up into our soul star, the Father energy, and we just allow that energy to come down, the fire and the air to settle in our heart space. And with that, check your grounding again and just be present. Release the noise and just open your mind and soften your heart. Soften your heart and open your mind to listening, to beautifully, actively listening to tonight's stories, listening to another's experience of their beautiful healing journey. So just settling in the intention to listen and deeply connect with the stories that are here this evening. And as you do, just settle in. I just invite, because this is a healing conversation, I just invite you to receive healing into your innate ability to heal yourself. So we're just channeling in this beautiful healing energy into your energy such that any physical, emotional, mental, or spiritual dis-ease can receive this beautiful energy. And as we do, we center in our hearts, we soften them and open the mind as we ground ourselves, wriggle our toes, wriggle our fingers, and bring ourselves back into the core.
That was awesome.
Thank you. So, I'd really like to, I'm going to pose questions. Guys, if you want to ask questions, you can either put your hand up and we will allow you into the room. We will unmute you and you can ask the question or you can type it in the chat. I'm going to be keeping an eye on the chat. So don't wait till the end, or we can wait to the end, whichever you prefer. But if you want any clarity or you've got some burning question, don't be frightened to ask those questions, because if you need to ask that question, there are probably other people in the call that also want to ask the question. There's no such thing as a stupid question as far as I'm concerned. So don't be shy, pop the questions in the chat. But really, I'm going to stop talking now and I'm just going to pose the first question, and also just for Tamrin and Taryn to say hi as well. But just to start thinking about the first awakening, that one that led you onto your spiritual journey, the start of the spiritual journey. And I'm just wondering for both of you, if you can share what happened in your life when you first realized something needed to change, and that you were being called to something deeper. A lot of us were out there partying, doing lots of wild things, and all of a sudden something in our energy shifted. And I really, let's start with Tamrin, and Tamrin, just say hi to the audience, and then Taryn, just lead on from there. So there's a beautiful flow between us.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tamrin. It's really lovely to be here with you all this evening. I'm in the UK. You can see we've got a little bit of blue skies going on. I mean, how exciting for the UK, right? But as you might hear, I'm originally from South Africa, and I actually just arrived back last week, Friday. You know, this journey, when I reflected on my journey and what I'm going to speak about tonight, I think it was really a deep sense and knowing within me from quite a young age that there was something greater, that there was something more. But I grew up in a household that was quite conservative. They had very Christian values. So my first introduction into spirituality was through Christianity and through going to the church. But there was something in me that was yearning for something more and something deeper. And the first time I think I really started to ask those questions, I was 19. And my late aunt, who I was very close with at the time, was tragically killed. And it was the first time in my life I had been confronted with this idea of death, this idea of impermanence. And I was very confused by how my aunt, who was this healthy, fit young woman, you know, in her early 50s, that this had happened to her. Mm. And at the time, what I sort of did, as Cindy said, I went to UCT and I went partying and and I would drink, and that's how I started to numb. But there was something in me, this yearning in me, that knew that there's a better way to deal with this. There's a better way to understand what has happened here. And my first real spiritual experience was in the church. Fast forward a couple of years later, I was about 24 years old, and the sort of dynamics of the church and the way that those things were playing out started to feel like it didn't fit me any longer. And I had got married really young. I, got the white picket fence, and I kind of fit this mold of what I thought I needed to fit. And really, again, felt this sense of uncomfortability, felt this sense of discomfort, and got divorced really young, at 24 years old. And I thought, I'm going to do things differently. I'm not going to go back into that journey of numbing and putting down. And I thought there has to be something different. So I started exploring. I started exploring other belief systems. I started exploring other ways of healing. And I stepped into this world of energy healing, of alternative healing, and really felt this beautiful connection that I'd never felt before. I felt this yearning that I've been feeling within me kind of touched. It kind of connected with this presence that was greater than myself. And for me, it was a sense of coming home to myself and coming home to this knowing that I'd felt for so long. And so that was really just the first step on the journey of realizing that there's something more. For me, it happened in a very significant moment of going to a session with a healer. I remember at the time I was in deep meditation under deep hypnosis, and I kind of transported into this feeling of oneness that I'd never really felt before. This idea that we are all interconnected. And I remember I had guides showing up in meditation. I didn't know what guides were at that time. I had guides showing up in this experience, telling me about my heart chakra. I didn't know what heart chakra was at the time. And all this information was coming in. It's almost like a veil was being lifted on seeing the world in this really beautiful new way. And I remember quite vividly leaving that space, leaving that session. I remember phoning my partner at the time and being like, I don't know what has just happened, but I need to go to the beach. I need to go talk to whoever's just spoken to me, and I need to figure this out. And it started the first step to kind of unraveling, what is this experience I had? What is this? What did I touch here? And this feeling of bliss, this feeling of oneness, of interconnectedness, how do I bring this to other people? And that's really what started my journey. That's really what got me walking along this path. And it's never stopped. The journey's never stopped, right? I mean, Taryn, I feel like you could probably speak into that as well, that we continue to evolve and grow.
Definitely. I think once you do choose a healing path, it becomes sort of a lifestyle, and it becomes very much a part of yourself. So hello everyone, I'm Taryn Nightingale. I'm in Cape Town. I'm in Fish Hoek. Those of you who are in the deep south know how incredibly
Scarborough.
So my journey, I would say it's interesting to ask, when did your spiritual journey start? Because I had an idea of when the dark nights happened, but when the spiritual journey started was when I was a little girl. And I very naturally saw spirit around all the time. I thought it was something that everybody experienced. When I went to bed at night, I would astral travel. I would also play with my consciousness. So I would move my consciousness from my body, and I'd go and explore in different spaces. I'd explore the blankets and look at the different textures in the blankets, and I'd come back into my body. And then I started talking to my family about this, and this was very odd for them. Like, what are you doing? What is this? It was very uncomfortable for them. And I thought everybody was doing that. And then all of a sudden I had a lot of shame around something that felt very natural to me. What I was seeing, what I was perceiving, I started questioning that a lot. And when you have your family and those closest around you start telling you that what you're seeing isn't there, you start questioning your own version of reality. And I think that started a deep core wound for me. And then what I did was I really pulled back, separated myself from my spirituality and my gifts and what felt very authentic to me. And then fast forward to after I graduated from UCT, and I'd just moved from Cape Town to Johannesburg to start my acting career, because I didn't want to do what everybody else did. I'm a little bit of a rebel. I wanted to be an actress. Moved to Joburg, and my brother was then in a car accident. And it's funny, Cindy was talking about in the beginning how when you go through this dark night of the soul, it's a lot about shifts and a lot about transitions. And what was happening for me at that time, there were many transitions in my life. I just moved to Joburg. Then my brother had this very intense accident where he burnt the side of his face. It was very traumatic for the family because we nearly lost my brother. So similar to Tamrin, there was that aspect of death that came into the space. That then triggered a lot of other kind of like a domino effect within my family. My family then all moved back to Cape Town, focused on my brother and what happened to him. And I was alone in Johannesburg because I was working on my career. And then I got into an abusive relationship. And that's when the spiral started. Because now I'd already been triggered into nearly losing my brother, who's one of my best friends. And now I was already in a really vulnerable space and found myself in a relationship that wasn't really supportive. In actual fact, what it was doing was it was triggering all my wounds, and all of that started rising to the surface. I still remember there was one particular moment in that relationship when he had assaulted me the first time that I left his place. I had to go and get stitches because he'd bit my hand, and I was in the bathroom and I felt this massive sense of loss of self and loss of self-worth. And then if you know anything about these kind of abusive relationships, a week later, this man phoned me and was so apologetic, promised me that that was the worst thing that could have happened and I don't deserve that. And he said to me, can I meet you and can we talk? And in that moment, I could feel it in my entire body. I committed a huge act of self-betrayal and I said yes. And that led me into a 3.5-year cycle. And I say it's a cycle because there's a cycle to this kind of thing. And you'll find in your own dark night of the soul, there's cycles that come up, certain patterns that come up. And I found myself in a 3.5-year cycle with this person where I was being confronted with victimhood. And what did it really mean to be a victim? Because a lot of the narrative around that kind of space can be like, oh, well, he's treating you a specific way. This is a bad person, which you're not at fault. But then I was also brought into the space of, but on some level, I'm sort of choosing this. So there was a lot within myself I was pushed to start uncovering. At the same time, I was working as part of a theater group, and I'd been introduced to my first spiritual teacher, who is still one of my teachers at this time and someone I trust immensely. And I did a psychic course with him. And I got to the end of the course, and the final part of the course was that I needed to do a reading for him. But I skipped that. I was like, I'm not going to do that. I completely avoided doing that. And at the same time, I was at the spiritualist church somewhere in Randburg, and I was doing another little course there. And the woman who was running it said, I think you're ready to do readings at the church. And I was like, no, I'm not. So there was a lot of resistance that was also coming up that I needed to also recognize around my dream, around my gifts and what was actually really natural to me. And each time I had an opportunity to step up and show myself, I resisted it. So that was kind of a pattern that played out for a few years. And that's how it started for me.
Wow, sure. Talk about a difficult initiation, Taryn. Yeah, really, really, and wow, if I looked at where you are now and how you actually work with people with relationships, isn't that really interesting that your work started in that and that was your initiation, and how often we then work with people in that initiation. So yeah, wow, well done for getting out of that, because that's not easy, and doing the journey. People often stay in that space, and that is, yeah. So
Can I
really
say
well
something
done
quickly?
for that. Yes, Chantal, you'd like to ask a question?
I mean, I don't want to show my face because I'm literally crying my eyes out right now. But I am not in a bad way. It's just in a way that, I've been going through quite a few things personally. Been so blessed to be introduced to this community. So I haven't asked myself the questions that this community asked themselves, or even allowed myself to feel the things that this community feels, in the sense of like taking it to the next step of self-preservation. But, I'm going through something right now where, I've had an abusive relationship in my family from a drug addict's point of view. And your story just really hit home very big for me, because it actually makes me realize that there is a community that is willing to listen to you, no matter what your story is, and make you, even if like you're put here to do better things. Sometimes when you are dealt the hand that is so realistic and so hard to achieve, you lose that sight. You lose what you're actually supposed to be doing. And I thank you very much for sharing your story, because it's actually ignited something inside me that is very hopeful, which is awesome.
Oh, thank you, Chantal. I'm really glad to hear that.
Very cool. Thank you.
Thank you. And just remember, Chantal, if you need to have a chat or whatever, we'll send out, there's a link and you can book a chat. And if you need some guidance, we are here for that. So you can always book a spiritual chat to just hold that space. Yeah, we're not talking about my story. Juliet, you'd love to ask a question. Please just unmute yourself. There we go.
Can
Hi.
you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Hello, Juliet. Hi.
Hi. So I'm doing it from my phone and it's a bit tenuous. Sorry, I can't get my camera up. I just wanted to say that your mentioning of self-betrayal really hit home to me.
Yeah.
I think I've won at least 4 Oscars in that department. And it just seems to be a never-ending, well, I think it has ended now, but it was a never-ending theme of my life. And I think in some ways the betrayal we do to ourselves, it can in some ways be greater than the betrayal of others.
Yes. That's hard. That's hard. I mean, at what point do you say to yourself, what am I doing that's just implicating this whole cycle, versus what am I doing to make it better?
Yeah. And why? Why do I feel I need to put myself through all these terrible circumstances and situations?
But you've got a purpose, right?
Yes. But when you're constantly betraying yourself, it's very difficult to allow yourself into your purpose. Well, for me personally,
1 million.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes just allowing space for holding or healing around that, just allowing the space to express, Juliet, I think is finding that space without judgment, either for yourself, I think there's something around not, how do you come back to make yourself whole? That's all that's important. It's not about, and Taryn, do you want to just talk into that?
Yes, definitely. So one of the biggest medicines that I've carried through all through my journey, and being in that space, being initiated into the space of recognizing the self-betrayal, the thing that got me out of it was, and as cheesy as it sounds, is love and self-compassion. We can't heal without love in the space. And the gift of having had that really difficult experience was to really find, what does it mean to truly care for myself? And what does it mean to truly love myself? And it wasn't something that I just woke up to and was like, oh, okay, this is the solution. It was really having to explore that and discover that. And through having that experience, it's really taught me a rootedness and groundedness in myself. So I'd say most important thing is the fact that you can recognize that there's that betrayal. That's beautiful. That's a sign of awareness. Now, the next step is, how can you hold that with compassion so that you can uncover why that is happening and what are the next steps to allow you to start slowly shifting that Trying to just get rid of it isn't going to serve you, but just holding space for that, holding space for what you've witnessed within yourself is a beautiful first step to really starting to heal.
Yeah. Yeah. And yet that is the most difficult step to take.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the conundrum of that is how do we get to that? How do we find the place to love ourselves?
Without feeling guilty.
Yeah, but whether it's the alcohol, the drug, the drugs, the abuse, but these things show up in our lives and part of them. I'd like to move on unless anyone else has got a question, because I'm really kind of, we've got two people who were then on their journeys and Taryn had a bit of structure, but I'm really curious. And I'm sure when you tell the stories, I'll remember from your interviews. But at what point did you realize that your healing journey, you needed some support, you needed some structure, you needed a safe space? How did you get to that?
Yeah, I think for me, you can only go at it alone for so long. There's that sense of I was 24, I'd gone through a divorce. This whole idea of what I had for my life kind of unraveled really quickly. And, I went to this session, I had this sort of really significant experience. But there was almost a frustration because you kind of journey forward and then you hit a roadblock and you default, and you journey forward and you hit a roadblock and you default. And there were these, now I can recognize the awareness of that there was so much pattern, so much conditioning that I was carrying with me, that I didn't even realize that I had grown up believing and embodying certain things for myself that were started to feel like they didn't fit anymore. And I wasn't sure how to move that. I wasn't sure how to shift that. I just knew that it needed to be let go. And I wanted to search for something. At the time I started teaching yoga, I was working sort of in the corporate world around working in marketing. I just wasn't feeling happy with that anymore and stepped away from that completely and was introduced to yoga, started teaching yoga, started working with children and with adults. And I started seeing this as well, where people were coming out of class and asking me questions, asking me things around their life that I wasn't always quite sure how to answer, but I could recognize the discomfort in them that they were feeling within me, and that I was going through the same journey of unraveling, almost like a peeling back the layers. And then I remember putting this intention out there that I wanted to find a course that wasn't just a weekend thing, that wasn't just like a 2-day. I wanted to find a course that I could really plug into. And I knew at the time, like traditional conventional therapy wasn't working for me personally. I always kind of felt like I went to, and my husband's a psychologist, so I say this with like great respect to that field. And if you tap into that space, like please, absolutely, and it works for you, great. For me personally, I just felt like I would do the conventional therapy, and I always felt like I always felt like there was something missing. And I knew I had to kind of search for something more. And I kind of put the intention out there that I wanted to find a course that would meet these needs of spirituality, but still had structure and that still was really grounded. And the School of Intuition showed up. And I remember, Cindy, at the time, we had our interview, we had our call, and I had actually fallen pregnant. at the time. Do you remember that?
I do indeed, yes.
Yes. And I was so excited about doing this course and going on the course. And Cindy was like, well, we actually don't accept pregnant women. So much to my disappointment. But timing is everything, right? Because a year later, when I joined the course, I was 6 weeks postpartum. I was not doing well. I had a colic baby who wouldn't stop crying and screaming. I didn't know what to do. I felt like I was back in the trenches. I felt depressed. I was really, really battling. And I remember that I had signed up for this course a year later. So having the interview with Cindy telling me that, you know, they can't take pregnant women on the course, kind of waiting in anticipation for a year for this course. The course rolled around, and I remember vividly the day before I had to start the course, and Cindy, you probably know this, the day before I had to start the course, I was driving around at 3 o'clock in the morning with my newborn baby in my car seat, desperate to get her to sleep, desperate to get her to stop screaming. And I thought, I can't do this course. How am I going to show up tomorrow? I've had no sleep. I look like a mess. I don't know if there's moms in here. If you're a first-time mother and you're in postpartum, it's not a pretty sight, is it? And I just remember thinking, how am I going to do this? How am I going to show up to this course? And it was one of those moments where you're kind of faced with, are you going to stick with what's comfortable? Are you going to stay here and just allow things to be as they are? Am I going to be brave? I call it like a big girl panty moment. Like, are you going to pull up my pants, and am I going to be brave about this and step into what I know I've been asking for? I've been asking this. I've been calling this in. Here it is. It never comes easy, does it? It never comes easy. So here I was, kind of at the threshold, driving at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning in Table View, and just kind of decided, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go to the course. I'm going to take it one moment at a time. Cindy and Taryn will remember, because Taryn was on the course with me. I literally they brought my baby. I breastfed my baby on the course. I said, right, Cindy, do you remember?
She was dedicated, as was her family, because they lived on the other end of Cape Town. So they were driving miles to bring the baby to be fed. But the baby got a lot of love.
Got a lot of love.
Yeah, really.
And sorry, I think my little light just went off here. And and it was just, I'm so grateful that I showed up that day, because I cannot tell you the medicine of the course that it gave me, when it taught me grounding, that it taught me how to center myself, and how that really just changed everything for me in my postpartum period. I'm not going to pretend and say that every day was easy, because when you've had no sleep and you're struggling with a colic baby, you know, the days are still tough. But I knew I had these beautiful tools that were given to me, like grounding and centering and connecting with my energy, that really changed the game for me. So I got to see in real life what a beautiful impact and influence it could have on my life. So that's how I found the course, wanting this in my life, knowing that I could work as a healer, and then really being confronted with the reality of life, of being a mother and postpartum, and actually it coming at the perfect time in my life, and really giving me the tools that I needed at that time.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Taryn, remind me what is it that you were looking for? What did you need at that time, having come through this really challenging time in your life?
So it was a few years later. I mean, I had started at that time, I started doing yoga, and a lot of my healing came from yoga, funnily enough.
Yeah.
And I very intuitively, for some very weird reason, I was doing hot yoga at the time. At the time, it was known as Bikram.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then I just felt like I needed to visualize my chakras while I was doing yoga. And that wasn't something that I'd ever read about or anything. So it was just quite intuitive that that happened. And then a lot of healing came from that, left that relationship, ended up in another relationship. That didn't work out. And then COVID happened, right? And just before COVID, I had been working for someone who had a lot of narcissistic traits. So if you can see, for me, a lot of my themes were healing around relationships. And you'd find for yourself, if you look at your own kind of dark nights of the soul, and even your little dark nights, you'll see that there are little themes that kind of show up quite often. And I just worked for this woman who was quite a narcissist, was very nice to me, but also very controlling. And I didn't really know where I stood with her. And I felt like I can't work for this woman anymore. I feel trapped. I need to actually find myself. But I didn't know what that meant. I was having very vivid dreams at the time. And so much so that I had a vision about the pandemic, which I didn't understand at the time that it happened. But so I had dreamt about a gas mask, and I just had this feeling that there was something that was going to happen, that it was just meant to happen. And I spoke to a friend about it, and she said, maybe that's something you need to clear. And I was like, no, this feels like something that is just going to happen and it's going to affect us. So that was quite interesting, because I was getting a lot of spiritual downloads. And I remember whilst we were in lockdown one day, and I was in the shop, and I was at the canned food aisle, and I heard my guide saying to me, start a healing circle. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not ready to do that. And I was freaked out. But then they told me, invite this person, invite this person, invite this person. And so I did. And then what started happening was there was a lot of intuitive guidance there was guidance I was receiving from my guides on how to host the circle, what to do. But because I was getting all of this information and it felt kind of like lofty, I didn't feel grounded as well, because the world was in such a shift and a shake, and there was so much confusion. I could feel within myself that as much as my intuition was guiding me, and I could feel that I was being pushed somewhere, I needed support. And I needed people who'd walked this path to help. But I didn't know what that looked like. At the time, the school was hosting an energy management class to help us sort of like manage our energy through a very difficult time, right, on the planet. And I did that. And I remember I was amazed at what I'd learned just in that week. At the time we did it, I think we did it like 4 hours on a Saturday and 4 hours on a Sunday.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And I was amazed at what I learned that weekend, because it absolutely shifted how I felt those 2 days, just 2 days of doing energy work. I remember a thing that stood out for me was we were checking our grounding, and we had to give ourselves a percentage. And I told Cindy this the other day, and my percentage was 60%, and I'm not a 60%er, or at least so I didn't like that at all, but it was very, it gave me a lot of insight into myself. And then there was still a little bit of resistance, because the energy healing course kept showing up. It kept showing up, and my guides were like, look here, look here, look here. And I was like, no, I don't. No, I don't. No, I don't want to. And then I made a deal with them. I said, okay, if this is easy to get into, and I connect with the person who is in charge of the school, who is Cindy, if it feels right, then I know that it's the thing I need to do. And I went for the interview, met with Cindy, and it felt right. My whole body said yes.
Yeah.
So my intuition, I would say, was the biggest thing that led me to the school. I knew I needed something. I thought energy healing, to be honest, was a little bit woo-woo. I didn't know what it meant. It was kind of like out there for me. But I know a lot of that, looking back on it now, was because of my own kind of judgment around being a healer, a judgment around having psychic gifts. And I think a lot of you can probably relate to that, this kind of thing like, do I really have a gift? Am I really psychic? Am I really a healer? I mean, I used to, at that time, when I'd hear people call themselves a healer or they'd call themselves a channel, I just thought, who are you to label yourself that way? But that was just that shadow judgment towards my own authentic aspects. So yeah, that's how I ended up at school.
We didn't look back. I remember we interviewed on my terrace in Marina de Carmen, Cape Town, at the water. I remember that so clearly.
Yeah.
And so just really, I think, Tamrin, you've spoken to a little bit around what, first of all, because I just want to explain to the audience, this process of becoming a healer is definitely not about being a healer. It's about healing the wounds within the healer and really taking a look at what is in there, because like Taryn said, like, who am I? Because at the time there was still a lot of wounding, there was a lot of confusion, there was a lot of operating or responding from wounds. And so there's this structure, and Tamrin, let's talk into you and really going through and chipping away at your own wounding. And I'm not sure where you will tell the story, whether it's during this or after the course, but really, what did this give you in day-to-day life? Because for me, that's what learning to be a healer is about. It's not just about being able to channel healing through your hands. It's about how you show up in life, how you get these shifts in this medicine to pass through you such that you can channel. Do you want to just talk into that a bit, both of you?
Sure. I think for me, it really helped me to give me a deep understanding about myself. And honestly, it made me conscious. It made me aware. I think sometimes we can kind of go through life and we perhaps know people like this, or perhaps we even have moments like this. And I still have moments like this where we're doing things sort of unaware. We're just kind of going through life and we don't even understand why we do things. Why do I have a strong reaction to someone when they say this? Or why does seeing that trigger this in me? And we kind of just go around getting frustrated and going through all these emotions and not really understanding the core of them or understanding where they're coming from. And for me, the course was this beautiful structured way and safe way, right? This safe space to walk through this deepening awareness of self, of coming to understand, that's why I react in that way, or that's why I'm triggered maybe when this person says this. So it brings, like the Buddha says, the first step is awareness. And that is it, right? It's the course brings you into this beautiful awareness and consciousness of self, but in this really structured way. So motherhood, becoming a first-time mother postpartum with a colic baby in and of itself it's like ripping the rug from under your feet. And that in and of itself kind of strips you bare. You kind of walk out of that room with your baby once it's born, completely changed, completely new. And it was just beautiful to come into a course that just held that space for me. I never felt, that I had to show up as my perfect self. I never felt that I had to show up perfectly put together. It was always this beautiful space of come as you are. And who you are right now is absolutely okay. And that course really helped me with bringing structure into that deep awareness, into that peeling back the layers.
Thank you. Taryn, what kind of things changed in your life? You know, like what changed? What were the, you know, these contractions? I'm really interested because we're talking about the dark nights and how did that serve you, you know, and what did that look like? Because it wasn't just the one, it was lots of little dark nights, wasn't it, for you?
Yes, I would say that. Would you want me to speak about it in general or when I was on the course
I
specifically?
think just in general, because I think it all kind of, you know, how does one come through these?
So I would say actually coming to the school helped me manage that a lot better and walk through it a lot better because it taught me how to trust myself, even though when I didn't always trust myself. So there's a lot of ways that that happens at the school in terms of giving you specific kind of tools. But how to navigate these contractions and expansions. I was actually talking to a client earlier today and a client yesterday, and we were talking about how when we look at the natural world, it gives us clues to how we can actually help ourselves and hold ourselves through the changing seasons, right? And shifting seasons. And if you think about a dark night of the soul, it's actually just a shift in a season. If you look at day, we wake up and there's day every day, and then it gets darker and it becomes night. So even just a 24-hour day gives you a clue into the kind of shifts that is very natural on planet Earth. And we often forget that we're human and we're subject to these natural cycles. So just having that kind of wisdom and understanding that about the natural world and that I belong to this natural world and am of this natural world, and approaching my own kind of contractions and expansions from that space and understanding that, okay, so maybe I'm going through a phase now where I'm experiencing a lot more pain, where things don't make that much sense, when I'm confused, when I don't have the answers, when I don't have direction, when I feel I need to actually pause a little bit. That's okay. It's nighttime. It's time to just pull back, to rest and see what I need to be shown, what I need to feel, where I need to just not know right now. And just as it comes every 24 hours, the sun rises again and that light will come out and I'll have clarity. So just knowing that has really helped me.
Beautiful. Yeah, just having those. And then, so the transformation happens, right? There's the biggest transformation that happens through any healing journey, through any work that we do. So rather than just speaking specifically, just talking to that, and then really your deepest transformation. I think we've spoken a little bit. And then the ongoing shadow work. So if I've left out something that you really wanted to say, Tamrin, if you just want to walk into that continued journey of having some tools now, and then what is that journey for moving forward?
Well, I'm having a little bit of a giggle because like my light failed, my AirPods battery went low. And this is exactly speaking into what you're speaking to, Taryn. Like life continues to happen, right? And it's really about finding that centeredness and that inner peace within you, that I think that this transformation does. This deep, spirit is visiting me. This deep knowing of self. What I want to speak into though is around that even though, you know, you could do the course, you can do the healing, as Taryn said, life continues to unfold. And for me, I think, you know, I had some dark nights of the soul, but my real dark night of the soul actually came at the end of the course. You know, I was coming at the end of the course, 2 years. I was feeling good. I was like mountaintop peak. Yeah, nothing can bring me down. You know, when you're in that space and you're just like, nothing can touch me, right? You feeling good. And I was pregnant with my second baby, clearly a theme for me. And it was coming to the end of the course. I was close to getting accredited and qualifying. And I lost my son in birth. And it was a really traumatic, dark, painful time that I went through. And it thrust me back into the darkest nights of my soul, where I wasn't even sure that I wanted to carry on. I wasn't even sure if I wanted to keep doing this work. It had challenged me in ways that I didn't even know I could be challenged. I had felt, when you feel pain on such a visceral heartbreak level, I was feeling pain on that level. And there was really no amount of healing, no amount of knowing that could take me out of it. And I talk about walking through the tunnel, that the only way to get to the light on the other side, because I knew it was there, even though it had been squashed out, even though it felt like the light had been ripped from me, I knew that it was there. I knew it was at the end of the tunnel, and I knew that the only way to get back to that light was to walk through the darkness of the tunnel. And I was reflecting on this before we kind of met here this evening. Where would I have been if I didn't have the tools that the course gave me? Where would I have been if I didn't have this community that I had plugged into? I vividly remember, and Cindy would probably remember as well, it was a couple of weeks after I just lost my son. I was naturally not doing well. I was in the depths of depression, of PTSD. I was battling. And I remember what Cindy said to me. She said to me, "That's okay. That's okay. Like, it's okay to be where you are right now." And I cannot tell you the relief that gave me. I think sometimes we think that when we become healers or when we're on a healing journey, it's always about the peaks. It's always about getting to the top. It's always about feeling good. But that's not what it's about. Healing gives you the capacity to hold all the experiences of being human. That's what I was able to do. That's why I was able to, it took me a while, took me a couple of months, but I was able to slowly step back into it, slowly to step back into my power of being a healer. Because I had this deeper knowing, this deeper awareness and understanding that even though life continues to ebb and flow, even though life can really throw us lemons sometimes, and which is on fire and filled with knives, right? There's this beautiful space within me. There's this beautiful inner peace within me that I can come back to. And the course, I feel like, really helped me to come to know that person on a very deep, deep level. And look, sometimes there's some days still where that Tamrin, that deeper inner knowing Tamrin, she's distant, right? She's not so easy to get to because like we've been saying, there's the ebbs and the flows, there's the contraction and the expansion. But the healing course really helped me to come to know that deep inner eye, that inner eye that is devoid of labels, that is not measured or validated or fulfilled by external things, but rather just by a knowing of that I, and a knowing of a deeper connection to source. I call it source. You can put God, higher self, whatever label you feel comfortable with there. And for me, that was really the watershed moment of my life, where I think of Sadhguru, who says, will you choose to be wounded or will you choose to be wise? And I don't think wisdom comes without sadness and pain and hurt. I still think it comes with that. Rumi says this being human is a guest house. Every day we welcome in a sadness, a depression, a meanness. But the idea, though, is that I'm not going to exist from this wounded space. I'm going to step out of victim and I'm going to step into victor. And for me, that was the magic of the course, that I am not beholden to my wounds. I am not limited by my wounds. I can overcome and I can transcend and work and operate and expand from a place that truly knows my worth, right? And I think it's all of us here in this space. All of us have that within us. It's not me. I'm not special. I believe we all have intuitive gifting. We all have this beautiful capacity and birthright to come to know that divinity within. And in whatever label capacity you want to express that in, but we all have that birthright to know that inner divinity, each of us here, regardless of the circumstances that we're going through. And I think that was the point of, even though I've been through the trials and tribulations, and even though that's a part of my story, the loss of Gavino is a part of my story, it's not my complete story. It doesn't make up who I am. Who I am is this divine being within, right? And I do feel like the course helped me to come to know that on such a deep level. And I reflect back, if I didn't have the support and the tools of the course, where would I be now? I'm not sure. But I'm not sure to be sitting with all you here tonight and having this really deep, vulnerable, and honest conversation. Yeah.
Tamrin, thank you so much for being so vulnerable and sharing that openly with us. That is so beautiful. Taryn, I'm going to throw you a question around. Sure. No, not you. I'm going to leave you,
Taryn.
Taryn. Yeah, Taryn. I'm really curious as we go. The purpose of the Dark Night of the Soul and being a healer, to show up as the witness. What do you think that these deep stories of you talking about your physical abuse and Tamrin, this deep loss of a baby, not being born? How do you working with yourself then enable you to hold space for others? And I think that's really important around this journey of a healer. And I'd love you just to share that, please.
Oh, it's a very deep question, and I can feel like even when you ask it, it opens up my heart chakra and it really touches me. So I just want to acknowledge that. The way I like to see it and the way I would describe it to anyone, and Tamrin and I are pretty good friends. We met each other actually on the course. So I wouldn't want to be guided up a mountain by someone who's never walked up that mountain. So if someone is going to say to me, hey, let's go climb that peak up there, and I'm going to be like, have you done it before? And they just go, no, I've got the map. For me, the beauty of having gone through the difficulty that I've gone through as a person in being in very toxic relationships, and especially that abusive relationship, it's given me a lot of depth in understanding not only the wound itself and where that comes from and why it's there, because being pushed so deep into intensity and such deep pain, once you get to the bottom of something, right, there's nowhere else but up. So you've got to look at, how do I climb out of this hole, right? And when you do that, you get to start seeing things from a different perspective, right? I'm not looking down anymore. I'm starting to look up, the lights above, right? So starting to make sense of how to move up out of something. And that for me gave me a bigger understanding of why that was in the first place. And how to get out of it. I had no choice but to do that. I had no choice but to figure a way to get out of that. And we live in a society where everything's about convenience, right? Let me swipe right to meet another partner. Let me call Dash in South Africa, Woolworths, to just like come to my house and deliver food. Let me call Mr. Delivery. Let me just phone someone or connect with someone on my cell phone. We don't make the effort anymore. So our minds have become very used to this idea that I can just do something easily and I'm going to be fine. And the reality is that's not really the reality. And having had to walk the path and be really in my body and the experience of that has given me a deeper understanding and a deeper appreciation for, I want to say, the sacredness of being alive. And because of knowing that, when someone comes to me and wants to work with me and they're seeking healing, their minds are so conditioned into the space of wanting convenience, of quick healing. I mean, we see it online. Someone's like, do this. In 3 weeks, you're going to be able to manifest your dream life. And the reality is, that's not really the reality. There's some truth to it, but it's not really everything that happens behind the scenes. And to be able to then live that and experience that and then know that and then provide that space for someone else to be able to go, okay, let me confront myself and let me witness myself, is the gift of having gone through those deeper, darker spaces. And the reality is we don't just heal by ourselves, we heal in community. So the more that we can do that within community, the more that healing extends outward, right? I mean, both Tamrin and I, in our deepest, darkest moments, we've been there for each other. I don't think I would have been able to do the healing that I've done without having support. You get to a certain point, but then there's a point where you're like, actually, I need someone to mirror back light to me. I need someone to remind me that it's okay to be a human. I need someone to remind me that feeling this deep, deep sorrow is okay. You know, Tamrin mentioned with Cindy, when Cindy said, it's okay for you to be where you are. And I think that's the importance of being able to go through this and have others who've also gone through that. We all have pain. We all go through these dark nights. A lot of people are trying to resist that, not really own that. But the real beauty in healing is when you can be like, actually, I'm a human being and it's okay. I do have some dark times and dark days. And that's actually what makes you more whole, integrating those experiences rather than denying them and pretending that they don't exist.
So, Taryn, you mean you're not over all your dark nights of the soul? Do you mean you're not complete? No?
I don't think so. One of the
You're doing your damnedest, but I think what I'm trying to share here is that continual journey.
100%. I think the biggest switch for me was when I started teaching at the school, essentially, was when I realized, oh, okay, there's no end destination here, because I think a lot of people have this idea that I'm going to go and do this thing and I'm going to arrive at this end point and then I'm going to be an angel and nothing is ever going to touch me again.
And I'm going to help, and I'm going to help everyone in the world, because I think there's that point of supporting people in the world and igniting their own healing, but showing up thinking that you're going to save the world as a healer, really, then you get a bit of a, like, hold on, my life is still going on, and we're holding and witnessing and then experiencing life on life's terms. You go through divorces. I got divorced 2 years ago, and you've still got and you go through moving countries like Tamrin went through, and you go through relationships. So we're continuing the journey, but holding and witnessing and igniting the empowerment of healing another. And I just really want to stress that as healers, we're not fixing people. As we can't fix ourselves, we can't fix others. And I really invite people to show up and when they receive healing, to ensure that they're not being promised a fix or a cure, because it's about support and holding and a framework or a channeling of healing for the journey. And it's that we learn, because I think we all think we want to be of service and we want to help people. And as we go through this journey, we learn we're witnessing and holding space, the compassionate witness, holding that. Because if I thought I could fix Tamrin at the time she came, like a number of people reached out to her that do this and do that. And actually, she just needed to know that going through her pain was what needed to happen, and witness that with love and compassion. So I think healing kind of people, but we do get the tools to hold that space. And I think that is the important thing. Juliet, you had your hand up. Do you want to unmute yourself? Hi.
Yeah, hi. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt. I just thought that, do you think perhaps the reason why we go through these dark nights of the soul is as you said also, Cindy, about holding space and being compassionate, but also to keep us humble, that we have these gifts and we share them with others, but we also need to keep reminding ourselves that we are just who we are, and that we, as you said, not this ethereal being at the moment on planet Earth, and that perhaps it's to remind ourselves of the pain, so that we can remain humble and share our gifts, but not in an egotistical way. You know what I mean?
Juliet, I would agree with what you said. I think the desire within is to find wholeness within us. And I think that we come in as whole, we then get broken down by our normal dysfunctional families and our traumas, etc. There are very few people who have a really easy, lovely childhood without trauma, and but I think we go through those. But I think the aim is to be as aligned and flow. And through the years I've got older, the dark nights get less traumatic, or they're the same validity, but I have the tools to manage them differently and navigate life differently. And so I think that it's really the realness is that the desire is to be whole and navigate in a place with as much flow and validity as possible. But I think humility around being a healer is absolutely vital. Even though I think some of us, when we see results and we're able to do certain things, we dance with our ego as healers. I have to have an ego to show up tonight and talk about my story. So does Tamrin and so does Taryn. But how do we do that in our heart space? And it can be challenging when you're getting great results and you've got lots of clients and the school is, look at us. Look how many people we're helping. And so you then just need to soften and try, that authenticity that needs to come back. Because, So really that's that. Tessa, you wrote it in the chat, but I hope you're going to ask the question live.
I was just getting as people were speaking that what I'm kind of, and I'm getting the shivers as I'm saying, what I'm hearing is that because through this work we are able to hold ourselves and be able to find the depths instead of running away as we've done in the past, as I've done in the past, because I think everybody has a dark night of the soul. I don't think it's unique to healers. And I think
Everyone, yeah, sure.
assume that is full of hubris. So I think we've all had it, and the more mistakes we make with monotonous regularity, the worse we're going to have it. So that's what I think, and I'm just hearing that being able to kind of be whole and instead of running, just kind of not embracing, but holding ourselves like this, that in a way creates a vibration that others can pick up on. And in that, they feel the safety to open up, and they feel this confidence to find that within themselves as well, because they've seen it, sensed it in you, not without you even having to say anything.
Absolutely that. And that is the desire, is for us to be whole. And we don't do healing to someone. We actually ignite the innate healing within each individual for people to heal themselves. And there's a misconception, and we get lost in the ego. We come back to that, and we come back to that. Yeah.
Through me as you're speaking, yeah.
So yeah, and that is the thing. So you're learning the techniques, and people will come, and then we hold space for them. But actually, I often say to people, somebody might come for you for 8 healing sessions, and their energy shifts a little bit, and they feel relaxed and they rest. And the following week, they go and have one session of cranial sacral, and their whole life changes because it's been chipping away. And the thing that we say is we heal with the intention of the highest good of all. And so there's this really important energy around the highest good of all, which could mean that somebody passes over. They have a cancer and they come to you for healing, and you hold space, and their highest good is to pass over. But the temptation to save them as human beings is there. And so how do you hold that space?
And that's the codependency, isn't it? It's about, like I have to walk down the street and I want to help. Oh, I want to help the old lady. And I have to say to myself, stop it. Because for me, it's a sickness to always stop to help somebody. And then it's like, very hard to draw that line, isn't it?
That is such an interesting phenomenon. I think you should help as many old ladies as you cross the road, unless you're putting yourself in danger.
Okay.
As a healer, yes.
Can I just, hi guys, Chantal here. I'm completely new to this whole group, and I'm totally loving everything right now. But I have to say, Tamrin, is that I completely and utterly resonate with what you've done, because my sister has just been diagnosed with something that nobody really understands. And that space that you hold for that person without feeling guilty about living, like, how do you actually communicate with somebody who's like just heard the worst news of their life, but still trying to be the positive influence of that person? I don't really know how to do it. But I think that this group is going to teach me how to.
If I may add here, Cindy, first of all, I'm sorry that your sister's going through that. And I think, just listen to what she's saying. I think just your compassionate presence, and we kind of were talking about this before we, Cindy, Taryn, and I, around this idea of where are our friends who just sit in the mud with us,
Yes.
who don't want to fix us, who I don't, when I lost Govino, if you were going to tell me, but look at the bright side, I would have told you to
At all. Exactly.
Do
What
you know what
bright
I'm
side is there?
Totally. There's no bright side in those circumstances. There isn't. Sure, there's a deeper understanding that may come. It might not. It may come for her at some point, but we don't know. So all we can do in that moment is to sit in the mud with her, sit with her, listen to her, hold her, and let her hold that space of just allowing her to go through that pain that she needs to go through.
And that's the healer role, right? That's
Yeah.
what a healer does. I mean, I'm coming into this journey from a completely cold. I mean, you need to understand this. Like, this is a calling that I always thought I had.
Yeah.
Never had it, but I'm now all of a sudden in this community, and I'm so grateful for it. This is the first masterclass I've ever attended, which is amazing. It really is. But like what you just said to me now is like really resonated, because this is a sister of mine. We're very, very public. We've got very high profile public personas.
Yeah.
She went all guns out blazing about telling everybody about this condition that she has. And I'm all about, well, do we have to let everyone know how this condition is? And like, what can I do to help you through it?
Yeah.
And you really just helped me now. You've really actually just said that doesn't have to be all about action. It just
Yeah.
has to be about being present. And it's
Yeah.
about being present without prejudice, I think. Just taking it on the chin. As a healer, you take it on the chin, you absorb it, and whatever comes from that is another story. But that's probably one of the biggest things of a healer, right? Is to just
Yeah.
absorb it.
Yeah.
Be present, be completely and utterly accepting. Do not judge. Do not try and understand everybody else's problems.
Yeah.
Just listen. Just like understand. And then what happens after that? I mean, I don't even know. So I'm really excited.
Yeah. Well,
for you
exactly.
to help me through this journey.
Totally. Like we don't know. We don't only your sister will know how she journeys through with that. And all we can do is hold that space and sit with her through it, right? And I think, and Taryn alluded to this earlier, we live in a society that's very masculine. And when I say masculine, I mean the energy, not even just, but
Totally.
this idea of like goal orientated. We got to get an outcome. I take this program and I lose 10 kilograms. Where I think what we're speaking into tonight is healing's not about a gold star at the end of the sessions, right? It's
Hallelujah.
not about like, well done, you didn't, it's
You spent 100,000 rand on those things, and well done.
yeah, exactly. It's really about doing life in this really real way and having capacity for all
And
of
being
life.
authentic,
Wow,
right?
beautiful. That's
Totally.
really beautiful.
Yeah.
I need to move into wrapping up. Are there any further questions for the audience? I don't want to keep everyone too long. And Chantal, thank you for contributing to our conversation. But are there any other questions from anybody else before we really, I'd like to just wrap up. And I want to wrap up with a story of myself, and then I'm going to thank everyone. My darkest nights of my soul actually have turned out to be my superpowers. My first dark night of the soul was being dyslexic at school and needing to come through that. My darkest one, my next one was alcoholism. And I don't refer to myself as a recovered alcoholic. I have healed from alcoholism. So that has really, and the healing course did that for me. I talk about a night, my dark night of the soul was actually, I was caught drunk driving and I spent a night in jail. And having gone through that, that is just like, I can hold space, I can witness, I can do that. And I have this understanding. And really those have made me and brought me to this place where I am here. So I really want to thank our two speakers. I have a whole lot of questions, but we're not going to get through them. I think you've shared the most important thing. For those of you who are keen to do some energy work or to do some healing, you will get an email tomorrow. We have Cape Town starting. I think we're full for Cape Town, but if you are keen to join, reach out to us. We then, in a month's time, we have Cape Town and online, London in person and online starting to, I think it's 26, 27. So if you are keen, reach out, book a chat with me. Let's have a conversation. This isn't a quick thing. We, hopefully these stories today have moved us. I know both Taryn's story and Tamrin's story. I hope that you enjoyed hearing from them. I think they've been amazing. I think they've been vulnerable. Thank you for sharing the difficulties and what you've had. But most of all, thank you so much to all of you for showing up, for listening to us, for being part of our community and asking questions and engaging. And for those that are listening, we know you're holding space. So Tamrin and Taryn, if you just want to say goodbye to our community, that would be great. Maybe one last sentence or something just to uplift them. Maybe some of these stories are difficult. If you need any help and support, book a chat with me. That's what we're here for.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us in this beautiful space and just giving this platform to be able to speak about what we are also passionate about, and that is being our authentic selves and helping others. There's one line I want to leave you with that I said in my reflection. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear my daughter, but and it says, you never stop learning, growing, and evolving. And that should be a really exciting realization, right? That makes life quite exciting, that we never stop learning, growing, and evolving. So I hope that all of you have a beautiful week of growing, learning, and evolving. And so much love to each of you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your presence. Thank you, Cindy, and thank you, Taryn.
Thank you, Tamrin. That was so lovely. So I just want to say one last thing, which for me I think is important to remember, is to remember once you can embrace more of your dark night, whichever dark night you're in, is to remember that it doesn't always stay as dense, and that the more you can hold that space for yourself, it becomes sort of like a practice, and you learn how to flow through that. And the more that you remember, as Tamrin mentioned earlier, that divinity within, the more you're able to hold more of that space of who you are and what you're experiencing. And just a reminder of that. And thank you for all joining us today. It was really an honor to be able to share my story and to sit in community with you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great week. Reach out and we'll see you at the next masterclasses. Bye all.